The world as we know it is gone. What we called the mad virus appeared out of nowhere. It made people turn extremely violent, aggressive, and unrestrainable. Soon later, the infected became bloodthirsty, more like vampires than human. There was chaos, panic, and war for survival. Desperate people were just as dangerous as the virus itself. Even our loved ones could become a threat. The infection spread quickly throughout the entire globe. Every region, every country, every city. Drastic measures were taken to get rid of the infected, but they all failed. The last chance for those who seemed immune was to hide in underground shelters, ones that we improvised in garages and basements, loaded with food, water, and air filtration systems. These were the places where we survived, sealed from the outside. For so long, we waited for any signal, any info that a cure had been found, or the situation stabilized. Instead, we listened as the world grew quiet. Our resources were becoming depleted. Life support systems were failing. And just as we were losing all hope, we received a distant call.
To all survivors, the infection is in decline. Seek others and rebuild.
This was the impulse we needed. There were others out there. We could come back to the surface. No more hiding. From the ruins of the old world, we will build our new home.
Is this massive open-world zombie survival game better than Project Zomboid? Well, we'll see. Hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome to our first look at a big O update for Infection-Free Zone. You may have seen it many times here before on the channel, a game that allows you to basically clear a major part of any major area or city on Earth. Literally, the Earth is the map is the Earth. It's crazy. You could type in any coordinates, you could type in any major city, or something like Area 51 or Disney World or Disneyland or an international airport, and literally try to clear the area of the infected and try to get other survivors to join your camp, build it even bigger. And it kind of builds out a little bit like They Are Billions, but also feeling a little bit like what would happen in a larger scale Project Zomboid. This game's a really interesting mix of all those genres, and I like all those genres, but this one does something a little different. So welcome aboard to Major Update 3, which, well, has some really great features, including Area Scavenge, which allows us to click and drag and cut down trees and other debris and stuff can be gathered that way very easily. There's also repairmen and a whole new storyline for the game, and as you see here on the screen, a lot of things still to come along, like land elevation and car workshops and the ability to make laws. So we're getting things that kind of remind me a little bit of Surviving the Aftermath, maybe a sprinkling of Frostpunk. Who knows how those things will be employed, but it certainly is very cool. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, now is the time to do that. Turn on that notification bell and hit that like button, because we may have more keys for this game to give away to all of you. So toss a 1 or lowercase j or something down below in the comments section and get up there, and maybe we'll pick some more fine folks to win. Now, I'll be streaming this game again in the future, so we'll pick more destinations and locations from you. So I'd love to know, where would you like to survive if you were playing this game, or what would be like a familiar territory or a cool scenario for you? And also, what weapon would you bring, both melee and range? Think about having to be silent, but also think about power and damage and ammunition and other things like that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and pick a random location here. The developers now handcrafting more of these destinations on the left side. A lot of these maps are kind of handcrafted by the developers because it also takes advantage of satellite imagery. So, for example, you could go to Atlanta, USA, and it'll generate a map for you. But the developers here have also added some more landmarks to things. So if you were to go to Paris, France, for example, if that's on the list, you'll see a much more highly detailed Grand Canyon, or a Eiffel Tower, or like Buckingham Palace, depending on the city that you're going to. White House, for example, or the Pentagon, which is really cool. They've added a lot more to this game now in making custom defenses. Finally, we can build our own custom defenses, and this is what the map will look like, which is great. Again, anywhere you would find a hospital or a military base or a police station or a school in real life is where it will be in the game. So it showcases major highways, rail lines, and then you can secure an area that's basically a 3x3 I'm not exactly sure of the measurement of this, but a major section of like Fort Lauderdale or Minneapolis or Chicago or something like that could be cleared of the infected, and then you could build a base right smack dab in the middle. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in and take our first look at the new update, and I'll continue to go over more. So welcome to Infection-Free Zone. Let's go. Go ahead and choose Washington, D.C. We're going to go to the District of Columbia, and boom, right there you can see the, Capitol building right here in the center of the white square right there, this area. And then also the White House nearby, but also the Pentagon right down here. We've tried to defend that before, but rather difficult to do because the game does recommend that we start with 100 houses nearby. Here it says unplayable, but if we switch our district to be down here, we could still start kind of in the center of the map with the Pentagon nearby. We're in Arlington here. We have airfields and airports and hospitals and bridges and other things nearby. Very cool. This information on the right side, incredibly valuable, showing you all the buildings, points of interest, what the temperature will be like, below freezing and just above, pretty warm temperatures with 4 to 10 vehicles and a medium difficulty, probably reflecting on the amount of buildings, which could mean a lot more spawning enemies, the infected. Sometimes I call them zombies or whatnot, but all right, this seems pretty good to me, and if this doesn't work out, we will go and defend the White House, or maybe even the Capitol building, and we have ourselves the, like the Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument, the Jefferson Monument and memorials all over, including, isn't this exactly where the Smithsonian is too? I'm starting to get vibes of Modern Warfare 2, but anyway, let's jump back in to Infection-Free Zone. Let's go. Now, we have to choose ourselves a name, so we'll just go ahead and call ourselves Fort Raptoria. Why not? And you can turn on and off tutorial events, and also, yes, this game does have a story, the new storyline of the scientists and, other characters that are being developed could just be turned off, and you can have a sandbox experience right from there. So there is a quote-unquote campaign that they're working on, and also, of course, it is completely playable in sandbox. We'll go with a ton of people, a ton of resources, and a ton of zombies, and that'll make it really interesting for us. Oh, also, we can change our flag, too, so if you want to change the color and stuff, let's go ahead and just do this. We'll turn it into Fort Raptoria this way. We'll go with a blue and white flag like that. Why not? All right, let's begin. Hell yeah, let's do exactly that. All right, this game's getting a lot more beautiful and detailed too. Very foggy right now, and I assume that's because they want us to pick something outside of this edge area. Yeah, that's just highlighting the starting area for us. So as you can see, the game's indicating where hospitals are, where there's maybe restaurants, grocery stores, parking lots, parking structures, that kind of thing. And the big O Pentagon right up there, which is going to be a really difficult place to defend. But we could pretty much choose anything, I think, within this area. Oh, yeah. Building is too close to the edge of the map for headquarters, so we could definitely go to the Pentagon later and even turn it into a safe house. So we can basically secure the Pentagon by starting somewhere nearby. Now, structures like this are good, and hopefully now with the new update, we could build structures around that. And this was the problem with the game before, is that, we couldn't really, you'd have one building for your HQ, but you couldn't turn a building like this into a multi-purpose structure. Like, you couldn't have like a barracks and a school and a kitchen and hydroponic farms and things like that. It just had to be one thing. So it was much wiser to like maybe build a palisade around an area like this and then turn every other building into a warehouse, barracks, that type of thing. So we're going to try out this building now and just see what we get with the new update, with it promising all sorts of different changes. Again, going into big changes that include, adding a few new recommended cities that, they've kind of created these areas a little bit, handcrafted them so that way we can fortify them a little easier and kind of, they kind of nudge and push you towards trying to use these, which is good. I think they should continue to add those. But also, this game should be completely, for lack of a better term, randomized, I guess. Like where you can pick any random city and not know where the hell you are. It's not procedurally generated, but certainly tries to procedurally generate based off some sort of pre-existing logic. So let's go with this building here. We're going to turn that into the HQ. It's extremely large, be very hard to defend in the first days. Don't care, we can do it. We got it. So as you can see here, this little green section, that's all we hold. Like that's the only section we've got. Alright, I'm going to get busy while this guy chats.
This is the same transmission we received before, but the signal is even weaker. Our walkie-talkies are not powerful enough for long-range communication. we have to build a large antenna. A local library or university would be a good place to search for information on how to make it work.
Let's go there.
All right, we're going to get started with that then. And have our people immediately go down there. Okay, so another thing that's been added is some more options for making an easier base, like making 90-degree snapping, and then also making it so that way there's more realistic trees and other flora and fauna that you might find in those areas. So if you go to Florida, you're probably not going to find a bunch of pine trees and palm trees and things like that. You're going to see a little bit more on the side of like, well, palm trees, right. You're going to find those, not alpine, like, you know, things you'd find in Colorado. So anyway, I'm going to go a little slow. This is not a tutorial on how to play, what to do, or what not to do. This is just simply on the update. So, you know, you missed this, you missed that, you didn't do that, you did, yeah, whatever. I really don't care about that. I'm here to check out what's new and find out how the differences between its first update and now have changed. Nice. Now, another great update, too, that they've added for these squads that go inside of buildings is that if they run away and are chased by zombies, they will stop and fight if you're, for example, having a horde attack you out here. So if you go from one building to another and they're just scavenging and a pack of infected walk up on them, they will stop to shoot rather than just continually run away and get wounded like these group members have here. So it's going to be an important thing, I think, for gameplay. That I mean, I would always constantly just pause and babysit every group because I thought it was too dangerous to like shift click. So I'm gonna have to break that habit because it was always something I didn't want to do. But I mean, there's been an incredible amount of patch notes on just small things that they've changed that make a big difference. So we'll see what those are. Right now, let's take a look. We have ourselves construct a new building. Finally, we can design and construct a new building from the ground up. Awesome. That's really good, because then we could tear down buildings like these and build our own. These buildings could give us building materials to build a fence or a wall or gates or towers, and so you could imagine these are packed with bricks and wood and possibly metal. Of course, you can even rip down the light poles and things like that too to then smelt down into making weapons. And so being able to then, you know, turn a building like this into a pile of rubble and then custom build your own warehouse, HQ building, barracks, kitchen, vehicle storage or whatever, like, you know, build like a little area to park your cars, all perfect for it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and try to break my habit and go house to house. If you shift right click, they can go from building to building searching for stuff. And then when the group is full, they should immediately return to base and then go right back to scavenging again. And vehicles can do the same thing too, where you can assign a group to a vehicle and then they'll head back and forth to the vehicle until that's full, and then funnel the supplies back to the base. So you can really make quick progress in this game with gathering resources, and we should be able to do this now too.
We need a workspace where we can experiment and re-engineer all the pre-pandemic technology. We could store all the books there too. Let's build a research center and assign the most technical minds there.
Let's do exactly that. I gotcha.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, so we started with a bunch of survivors. They're going to go out and cut down a ton of trees, and also very soon in this game, and I think we're making steps towards that, the weather and the season will have a big play in how you survive. So if you gather a bunch of seeds towards the end of the year, you're probably not going to be able to grow a lot of crops, and you'll have to rely on things like MREs and canned food for a while, which doesn't really last as long as baking your own bread. And it'll be a good thing to have that in storage, because now we have these little indicators up here on food shortages and also shelter shortages. So we've started with a little bit of material, which we can then start. We have our typical buildings here, squad quarters too. Oh, nice. That is new to me. I have not seen this before. Wait a minute. Hosts more squads and allows the creation of new ones. This is a place where they can gather and rest. A safe house. Boom. We can now build a safe house anywhere on the map. So if we were maybe funneling supplies back and forth from the Pentagon, and there's a lot of enemy forces here, like for example, we could be attacked by a tank or something like that. It'd be kind of cool to make safe houses for your people to use as almost like a early warning perimeter barrier, where you got a buffer zone, and you can use that area to detect the enemy and fight them off, and then flee if you need to your main walls. So it'll give you an early warning system, or a place for squads to hunker down for the night before they return to base if they need to. So that's very cool. We have houses now. We can build our own homes. Old world house that could actually be called home. That's a higher quality building. Or shelters, which we can convert these buildings into, to where you see we can house about 37 people. So we'll do that there. So those will more than likely be new buildings that we can research over time. Looks like we have ourselves the typical cookhouse, cannery, farm fields, protective gear factory. That's new to me as well. And chemical plant, I think, was also there before. We also have fortified structures, so we can have almost something along the lines of the Berlin Wall. And then also brick and metal walls, too. Wood is probably the best thing to build right at the start. And, you know, if you remember what I said about They Are Billions earlier, what I was relating that to is in They Are Billions, you kind of, you know, start with your base and maybe wall it off. And then each time that you expand, you wall it off little by little. And this is a good idea to do, too. Defend your main base, then build a wall maybe around where you're going to do your farming. I think the enemy can come on in, and I don't know if this has been patched out yet, but there's a lot of, like, zombie games and city builder games and stuff where, like, in an RTS, units can shoot bullets at the ground or something and destroy your wheat field, which I always find to be weird because it's like that's not how you're going to do that. You really couldn't even do it with fire unless the crops were actually grown, so. But we could argue about that all day. Now check this out. More structures. We got that new repairman shop. So that guy will take care of repairing buildings without any sort of special orders. So you'll have people basically defending your base, and the towers will be taking damage, or your walls, and those guys will go out and repair it. And hopefully they work during the nights too, so when, you know, like when an attack happens, if they're no longer attacking that sector of your HQ, then you can kind of fight back. Let's go over that sector. Got people with, oh yes, right. One of the previous updates, too, allows you to find, like, medieval weapons in museums and things like that. Literally, like, medieval armor and polearms. So you could have almost knights. You could have knights go out and start, you know, slaying the enemy that way, right? Like Evil Dead style. We also have a mask, too, so kind of some decorations. Maybe it'll help morale a little bit later. And bars and things like that, too, have been added in as well. So it's been a little bit... There may be some things that were a little older, and so I'm finding old and new things all at once, but I'm delighted to see it. I think that's great, as well as being able to finally build our own structures, which is good because we could rip this, we could make a small base here and build up some stuff, destroy this building, and then make our own custom base here. And then, of course, one thing you have to do in this game is go to every single house, shift right click, and then just endlessly raid all these homes and load that stuff up and bring it back to your warehouses, which could get quite full. So to be able to build your own custom warehouse that could be a big building is important. And another thing that's a big problem too is, like I mentioned before with those safe houses, one thing that was always troublesome is that it is very difficult, and I hope it's not the way anymore, but oh, look at this. They've literally found, look at that, medieval, there's like, these guys have handguns and like medieval helmets and shields. No. One thing we could do is, hopefully what we could do with these squad headquarters is build a building like this where our people can be inside of a building and constantly being resupplied with ammo. The squads, I like to use the squads as a mobile defense force rather than the towers. Towers are good, and they're certainly helpful by the gates because the enemy will prioritize that. But one of my most favorite things to do is literally to make the squads do it, because they're the ones with the guns. They're usually at base because they're either supplying or getting resupplied or something like that, you know, dropping stuff off. They're going to be coming to and from base, and they're armed and they're skilled, and they actually have veterancy in this game too. So, you know, somebody can become a very skilled scavenger or very skilled with like their weapon, and so they're the perfect people to defend the base. The only problem with that is eventually they'll run out of ammo, so you want to put them like in a warehouse that has ammo, so that way they can keep shooting. Otherwise these people carry like one magazine on them and that's it, unless you put something in their squad resources. So arguably I think there should be a way for them to carry much more ammo, as it would be a necessity to go out there. I mean, you'd have your gun, your armor, and then additional ammo. I mean, there's no reason not to. And of course you could probably find ammo on the field and want to bring that back, but if it came to it, you'd be defending yourself and the base if you had to burn through the ammo that you found. So I think those squad buildings might be able to be supplied, and we'll try to build one and see what happens, and try to defeat the enemy like out there. That's a great way to cover like a large area of land. Like we can cover a sector that big, and so instead of building towers, it would be cool to build a bunker, right? A bunker for your squads to hunker down, hunker in the bunker, and then load it up with ammo, and it would be a much more defendable structure than two people in a tower. The towers are cool, though. When you build a tower, you can, of course, put a bowman in there, and those people can be armed with bow and arrow, and that's unlimited ammo, so they can clear the walls of the base pretty easily. But, you know, when you've got a ton of ammo in your base, you want it to be immediately supplied to all the defenders. So the towers and all of your squads should be immediately armed, and that's one of the hardest things in this game, is to make sure that they are able to keep fighting by continuously finding ammo on the run. Of course, you can find shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, you know, things that are a little bit beyond like a hunting rifle. The handguns are pretty, you know, standard equipment for police and maybe military. You know, if you find a base, you might find some handguns for the military police, but you should be able to, you know, break into a bunker and be able to bring a lot of stuff home. This game is getting really good too with the random events that can happen. Finding recently we found like prepper locations where people are hoarding like ammo and food and fuel, and it's just like a crazy cool thing to stumble upon and to be able to discover. So now with the new expanded storyline, we have the standard objectives now of researching stuff, but now it goes beyond that with trying to well, survive against an enemy force that will eventually come for us, and we can either choose to submit or not. I think they're asking us to research the antenna, and we have 3 knowledge for that. One thing we need to do in addition to the shelter is to build a research sector. And where's that research center? Oh, under miscellaneous there? Okay. We'll build that right here. Maybe we're 8 scientists. That's good enough. That's good room for expansion. So then these smaller homes, like these 3 or 4 story buildings here, are great for little bases. Things like a barn, things like storage, or small shelters for your people. But one of the most important things is that these very small homes can be used for free supply. So you can tell your people to demolish these buildings, and they don't have to go too far to get a bunch of materials for your walls or maybe your new base, which I think we have to eventually research here. It says research advanced masonry to unlock that. So going to schools and universities, especially with like a truck, because those buildings are very big and usually pretty far away, like they have a big sprawling campus around them, almost like this, you know, with fields all around. It's great to bring all those things back over a long period of time. We're going to continue to scavenge from these buildings. And I really like the stop and shoot system now. We'll have to see that in order, but again, remember, I did explain that they'll stop and try to clear the threat before they go on. There's also a new train event where a train could be found in the game, and I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it would be cool to have like a group going along the railroad tracks, finding a broken down train, maybe some survivors in it, and then claiming all the resources there. So a lot of cool stuff that we're just not going to be able to see today, which is why I do, again, encourage you to subscribe and make sure you watch from the beginning if you skipped this far.
The people have reported hearing a lot of noises coming from underground.
That must be me.
They're
I'm hungry.
afraid that it could be infected moving through the sewers and tunnels. We need to bolster our defenses and be ready to attack from within, too.
Let's see. Let's prepare.
We'll be ready.
Cool. All right, then. So yeah, our people will continue to bring back canned food. We will continue to build like a base. Actually, before we even build a wall, I think it's a good idea to build a tower and then connect those towers. So they ask for that eventually, too. And what do we have for materials? We've got... boy, let's see. What do we have up here? 69. Nice. Wood and 12 steel. So not enough to build a metal tower, but certainly enough to try to build some sort of a protective barrier around the HQ. We'll maybe build it in each of the corners where they keep trying to attack like this. And, oh, nice. I think it's actually snapped to 90 degrees now. And I think what they mean by that is if you click and hold... No, it must be for the farm fields. We'll need to find those later. But it used to be where they would randomly... Oh, here we go. Yeah. Where they would randomly rotate. Oh, wait a minute. Ooh, hold on. I'll explain that later. We got other neutral survivors out there. Let's go find those folks. See if we can make contact. Those could be enemies, too. They might try to attack us, but we'll try to make contact and get them into the camp, too. Very nice. So, yeah, we have fermentation now, which allows us to have that bar, which is great for morale. And then also the attack range has been decreased for enemies, and it'll be easier to run away from them. So gunplay is much more important now. You can really do a last stand to a much longer distance. And as I had mentioned before, I really hope that we're able to build a shelter like we are up here. In fact, I wonder if we have a priority. Yes, I think we do. We could put workers on there.
Sir, we've encountered a group of people willing to join us.
Great. Let them in.
Send them in.
I was about to remove some people from the groups down here, but I think we'll just wait for those folks to arrive. Actually, it might be a little while. Oh, we have them on scavenging. I'll put 10 people on the building team, and then we'll have them go over here and build. Or they're building a bunch of other stuff. So now we got all these builders making homes, making research center, and then all these people should be able to come in and then start working on cutting down trees. We'll also do the gathering metal. And this, I think, was a thing before to be able to click and drag like this, but I think there's been something changed to where it works differently than it had before. I read that patch note, and I was like, can you do... I couldn't remember if you had to click each individual tree. Some games are like that. You know, Going Medieval and a lot of other games where you're building a base for a small group usually allow you to do that. But I couldn't quite recall for this one. But there you go. All those car wrecks can be used for metal. All the street lamps. Going to be great. We're going to make guns and ammo out of that. Other types of weapons. That'll be cool. So yeah, pretty easy now to get what used to take years, in-game years to do. Now it can be done pretty much by the end of the first year as long as you get lucky and find a car. Oh, there we go. Another group here. Hopefully they're neutral.
Sir,
And I'm glad they came to us.
a group of people willing to join us.
Send them in.
Wow, great. This group just found 2
Receiving.
groups of survivors. Let's keep going.
We're on the move.
The only problem now is people will have to be housed and fed. We only have 34 cans of food, and we'll have to continue to see if we can find them some homes. And I'm going to start with a field. And maybe we'll build that here next to the tower. I think the way that they've done this campaign is pretty genius. It reminds me about how things play out in a game like, for example, Ace Combat, where a lot of the story is not necessarily in the pre-mission briefings, but can take place live on the radio between characters and mission updates, talking about what's happening. So I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to not jump to a cutscene or anything like that, but to literally just hear it played out in a radio communication, as we are like the radio operator, which is the whole importance of research and building a radio tower, researching that, and then broadcasting where we are, which is really cool. So now that we can build our own buildings, I think this game is much more playable than it was before. A lot of where you built had to basically be built around like a castle, like Warwick Castle, or you know, like a pre-existing fort, or some sort of a Civil War fort. Like I think we've gone down to not Fort Lauderdale, but something like that, where there was an old Spanish fort. And it's really cool to defend those buildings, but as you'd imagine, the game sometimes thinks that those are just like mounds of dirt, or it turns it into something like the Pentagon, where it's not split into small sections. The Pentagon here is one giant building, and as you can see here, it's I actually think it's a concession stand, like that's where the nuke silo is, I guess. But yeah, so you can see here that there could be possibly food here, but it doesn't really give us an appropriate measurement for how big this building is. But you'd imagine that you could take each section of this building like this and just turn it into its own base. Like this could be, you know, barracks for a bunch of people, warehouses, you know. And it's not perfectly accurate. It's a pretty good accurate rendition of the Pentagon, but you can see where it's goofing up a little bit. And so large structures like this that are supporting structures like parking garage, security, all that other stuff, this could all just be, you know, cut down into smaller buildings. So I think in addition to the I want to build my own building feature of constructing a new building, being able to better cut buildings up would be nice. Like, what if we wanted to take this section down and then, like, you know, I don't know, build a wall in this section and make smaller buildings, or destroy half a building, or take a large building like that and further segment it. I think there's still a long way to go, but these are huge steps into at least being able to build in somewhere where it would be more rural, or it wasn't as fun before. You would build in a rural area, and you kind of were just limited to the amount of buildings that you'd find. Like, you could find a small, you know, western town in the U.S., and there's not much there, and so you would, you know, clear the town in a matter of minutes and then just be able to fortify. Well, barely be able to do that because there wasn't a lot of supply. But if you were able to go out in the world and get supply and bring it back, you could pretty much secure that town pretty easily. But again, this game gives you a straight up answer and saying, hey, you control what you do in this game. If you're settling in a desert where there's not a lot of trees or buildings, you're going to have a bad time. On the other hand, if you settle in Central Park in New York, you're going to have a bad time too, because there's going to be way too many buildings, way too many zombies, way too much urban hustle. So you do want something like this. Suburbia and or like European medieval cities, because the game can render medieval walls, are really good. So if you find like an old French city or a German town or something that has the old wall still there, and then a bunch of like beautiful shops and buildings. That's a defensible position, including the castle, which you could kind of turn into like a last fallback position or something that you could hold and maybe store things in. All right, well, we've told most of our people to go out and gather. We're going to keep that up. This system works a lot like how it does in Banished, so not too many changes here, but again, there is new things here like people being ill. So we do have the addition of like doctors now that are a little bit more important than before. Nurses, that is. They did before allow your people to heal by having, if your scavengers or your scouts went to the warehouse, they could heal that way with med kits. But here, finally, we have a little bit of time to kind of breathe and send people to the buildings that they need to go to. So pretty exciting for that. And even children now. There's a kindergarten that's been added a while ago, and now it allows you to kind of have more of a society. Children can be born. It's not just outside survivors anymore. Young children can be born. We have 9, I think, in our camp. Where did I read that before? 7. We have 7 children here. They can grow up and then eventually become citizens and then die off of age. No graveyards or anything yet in the game, but I'm imagining in a world of death, people just leave the body there, but that's a bad idea for, obviously, disease and attracting the infected or other animals to you, which there are different types of infected, and we'll see if they add a bunch more. So, let's see, view distance in the biggest buildings has been added. And I think what that means is that we can look out the corners of the buildings and get a height advantage for that. That's not really, it's kind of vague how they put that, but I think essentially you can see a little bit further in the corner of a tall building. I'm not sure how it calculates that, but essentially if we go to the corner here, by the way, look at how small this area of effect is for our group, and that's because they have pole arms. But you can still see that they can reach out pretty far and attack the enemy, so I think that implies that they're kind of in like 4 corners of the building, so maybe a couple people are here and there, and they're on lookout. They're still together in a squad, but they're kind of peeking out for the enemy and watching where they're coming from. I think a lot of this might be, or possibly was, generated by AI, but if not, they've done a great job. Some of the loading screens and things here are really nicely done, and if that is AI, at least they're taking control of that and making sure it has some sort of quality. And again, to go back on that even further, this game does kind of utilize some AI because there is some artificial, system generating all the maps and putting the buildings down, to which a lot of these buildings that are office buildings sometimes look like generic factories, but then also look like believable, like buildings. A variety of colors, different window sizes. Some of these look like, low-income housing, suburban homes. You can see here that there's like shingles. Not all of these are flat roof buildings. Like this could be maybe a strip mall here. But, I mean, I'm impressed with this. They could have gone way lazier on this, but there's sidewalks rendered, roads here, and the system does a good job of trying to create something that you may or may not know is there. I mean, you could live in one of these cities and know the town like the back of your hand, and I think it'll be pretty close. I think it is along the lines of what Microsoft Flight Simulator used to do, where the map of maybe like earlier days of the development of 2020 and also Flight Sim X, where it looks pretty damn good. Like you could see the landmarks and you can kind of believe everything around. And the more you play and the more you're familiar with an area, it'll look a little wrong, but that's totally fine. It is what it is. It's a game and it's getting better. Is this better than Zomboid? Yes, in a way. The scale is really cool, and the ability to build a large fortress like that without having to do it in the scale of Zomboid is really cool. On the other hand, it loses that beautiful tension of going into each and every building and looking through all the cupboards and going to the second floor and then getting trapped in a bathroom and then having to like bust out the bathroom window to then sneak down from the bed sheet rope or something and escaping out of the back of the building. So on the small scale, it ain't got it. On the big scale, it's got it. And I really hope that we would get something, and of course there's a billion mods for Zomboid that allow you to build forts and things like that, but if you could get a group of, 20 people together to build a giant fort and communicate in a large scale in Zomboid, is possible. It is absolutely possible. So it is more of a question of, is this better? Yeah, a big step forward of what Zomboid could be, and also a big step forward for what these types of games could be too. So I want to keep finding and exploring games that are like Zomboid, even if they're first or third person, or in this case like an RTS. This is kind of more of a, you know, like Command and Conquer, like Red Alert. It's like a Red Alert StarCraft type game or whatever, because we do have an HQ. We are building, you know, like housing to get our population cap up. Essentially, if we don't do that, people will die of sickness, and we won't be able to get more than that. We have to build food and manufacture weaponry. So it's an interesting perspective, I think, on the whole open world survival genre. In Zomboid, of course, we've got the basic map of what, somewhere in Kentucky, right? And here it's anywhere in the world. So, you know, they got their advantages and disadvantages. And I find a lot of people who enjoy this game love Zomboid, and people who love Zomboid love this one too. I like it. I like it, man.
Sir, we've spotted some people. They're probably armed.
Uh-oh.
They could have seen us too, but I can't tell if
I don't
they're
like it.
friendly. What should we do?
Approach them as friendly, yeah.
Approach them friendly.
I know they're not friendly. They're going to try to kill us the moment they see us. That's why we're going to go into this building. Be careful now.
Roger.
Also, they've made multiple exits and entrances to buildings now, so that's really nice. Let's actually get ready to go into that building when they turn on us.
They're coming.
Oh, I'm so shocked. How could they have betrayed us?
Take him down. We need backup.
Nice, we got him. Wow, one of our guys almost died, but we got it, baby. So now, I think, because they died in here, I don't know if we'll get their guns or not, but that squad followed us into that building. And typically when you kill people like that, they actually drop supplies too. So if you find people who are in the military or armored vehicles and things like that, you can actually take that. So they could have, well, these people had guns, so we could take their guns and ammo, and they're already loaded with food. So actually we'll kind of just do that manually. So yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff indeed. Well, custom building, more things to build within those buildings, a new expansion to the storyline, and fixes to things that make the game in its world building even better. I like it. Not to mention ways to build things better too, like not just things to build with, but tools to build more accurate and beautifully laid out bases and buildings. I like it, man. This game has come a long way since the beginning. A lot of people thought it would never come out. It did, and I'm glad to see so many people liking it, and I hope it gets even better. I hope the same for Zomboid and all the other games we've been playing on the channel. But Zomboid's still king, man. It's still a damn good game. But hey, I want something to top it so we get better games. All right, let me know what you think of the game down below in the comments section. Leave a 1 or a lowercase j or glory to Raptoria if you watch this far. Many of you won't, but some of you will, and I'll heart those comments too. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye, buddy.